king at 9. Imagine becoming a king when you are only 9 years old. That is what happened to Tutankhamun. He became the king of Egypt when he was only a boy. He ruled for 9 years and died when he was still a young man. As supreme ruler of his people, he was thought of as a god. He was the messenger between the gods and people. Today, Tutankhamun is one of the most famous kings in all of Egyptian history. However, he was not a famous or popular leader during his lifetime. He served as king for only a short time and achieved little during his rule. Why is he famous? It might seem strange, but Tutankhamun became famous because he was forgotten. It is believed that his early death caused an urgent burial. Tutankhamun's body was placed in a small tomb, probably built for someone less important than himself. Some time after his tomb was sealed, the opening to his tomb was covered by debris when a later tomb was built. For thousands of years, his body lay forgotten in its tomb, surrounded by beautiful treasures. He and his treasures were safe from thieves. When Tutankhamun's tomb was finally discovered, it became one of the most significant finds in the history of archaeology. The inside was very different to any of the other tombs of the pharaohs found by archaeologists. Thieves had broken into most of the other tombs. Tutankhamun's tomb is the best preserved tomb ever found. Even though his tomb was smaller and more modest than others, it was amazing. Most of his things were just as they were when they had been put there many years before. It was a glorious tomb filled with treasure. The special items housed in the tomb, together with the paintings on the walls, helped explain a lot about both Tutankhamun and Egyptian culture. King Tut's father. Tutankhamun was born in 1341 BC, around 3,400 years ago. His father, King Akhenaten, was not a popular leader. He used his power to stop the Egyptians from praying to many of their gods. Instead, he demanded that they only pray to one god, a sun god named Aten. By itself, this was a big change. He was asking people to change their religion. In addition, there was another side to his policy. It was also a strategy to take power away from the high-level priests who respected other gods. This made the powerful priests very angry. Basically, Akhenaten's policy changed society and the economy away from a priest-based system to one ruled by the military and government officials. In addition, Akhenaten moved the capital from Thebes to Amarna, known as Akhenaten to the ancient Egyptians. These changes caused a great deal of trouble, and some historians believe that Akhenaten was eventually killed as a result. Indeed, his enemies removed all records of his time in power. Then, after a short rule by one or two other pharaohs, it became Tutankhamun's time to rule. King Tut's power. Becoming a king at 9 years of age would not have been easy. Because Tutankhamun was so young, he did not have the responsibility of ruling alone. Actually, for a number of years, a military general named Horemheb and a legal advisor named A helped Tutankhamun rule Egypt. Tutankhamun removed most of King Akhenaten's changes to the laws. He brought back respect for the old gods, especially the god Amun-Ra. Tutankhamun wanted to fix some of the damage that his father had done. He wanted to make the gods happy again. He repaired some of the temples and holy sites. He brought back traditional festivals created for the gods. He also improved foreign relations and moved the capital back to Thebes. When he was born, Tutankhamun was named Tutanhaten. This means the living image of Aten. As pharaoh, he changed his name to show people that he did not agree with this. Tutankhamun means the living image of Amun. King Tut's life. Our knowledge of Tutankhamun is limited compared to other Egyptian pharaohs. We know that he married his half-sister, Tutankhamun, and that they had no surviving children. Also, even though there were wars during his time as leader of Egypt, he probably did not fight. Although the images of Tutankhamun are beautiful, recent scientific studies have shown us a different image. He had bad teeth, wide hips, and a deformed foot. He walked with the help of a walking stick. There were 130 of them in his tomb. Thanks to modern science and DNA analysis, we know that Tutankhamun was in poor health when he died. In fact, there has been much debate about his death, which occurred about 1323 BC. Evidence suggests he had malaria, and according to some theories, the disease killed him. Other people argue that he died after breaking his leg when he fell from a horse. This would have been a painful way to die. His leg would have become infected and swollen to twice its size. Eventually, the infection would have poisoned him. After he died, the young king was mummified like other pharaohs. In this process, they preserved his body by wrapping it up before placing it in his tomb. After his death, Tutankhamun was almost completely forgotten until a man named Howard Carter discovered his tomb in 1922. Finding King Tut. Howard Carter searched for tombs in Egypt for many years. He found the tombs of Hatshepsut as well as some tombs of nobles. Later, Carter and his co-workers spent years searching for Tutankhamun's tomb, facing a difficult environment and particularly hot weather. A rich man named Lord Carnarvon, who was paying for the project, proposed that they call the search off. However, Carter was very driven. He was positive he would discover the tomb soon and argued that they should search for one more year. In November 1922, Carter's workers discovered stairs below the ancient debris from a different tomb. The stairs led down to a door with Tutankhamun's name carved on it. Carter sent a message for Lord Carnarvon to come quickly. Before going any further, Carter waited for Lord Carnarvon to arrive. Carter entered the tomb with Lord Carnarvon and other local officials. He opened a little hole in a second door and used a candle to see inside. "Can you see anything?" asked Carnarvon. "Yes, wonderful things," said Carter. It was one of the most exciting moments in Carter's life. The tomb was intact. Inside was beautiful art on the walls that told the story of Tutankhamun's funeral. There were also oils, jewelry, and clothes from when he was a child, as well as many other treasures. Carter and the men had never seen anything like it in their lives. The tomb turned out to have 4 rooms. There were thousands of priceless objects. They even found Tutankhamun's mummy. The men were certain this would be one of the most significant archaeological finds in history. And it was. Newspapers across the world reported the story. Both Tutankhamun and Carter became well known all over the world. Going through so much treasure took many years. In fact, Carter and his team carefully worked on the tomb and artifacts for the next 17 years. The Boy King Remembered. The beautiful mask of Tutankhamun's mummy, the remains of his body, and many of the other treasures now bring in huge amounts of money to Egypt. Thousands of people visit Egypt every year to see these treasures. Museums across the world have featured Tutankhamun exhibits. Artifacts from his tomb are among the most traveled artifacts in the world. Television shows and movies have been made about his life and death. He may have been forgotten for thousands of years, but Tutankhamun is certain to remain the most famous boy king of all.